Hello everyone and welcome back to your weekly gaming podcast, the GamerGuild Podcast, where myself, Chris, and my lovely co-host Richie
hello everyone
get together to round up all the weekly video game news for your listening or viewing pleasure right here on youtube.com/GamerGuildTV, also available up there in the digital clouds on your podcast platform of choice. You join us this week for another fantastic show talking about Palworld taking over the world as the Pokemon clone powers through all Steam records known to man on its way to hunt down PUBG, Microsoft laying off around 2,000 more staff, a imminent state of play for PlayStation potentially in the works, and also Switch 2 leaks continue to drip feed out from tech industries around the world. But before we get into all that, don't forget to like, subscribe, ring that bell so you are kept in the loop with all the great content we do here at GamerGuildTV, like this very show, like our weekly Let's Plays, live streams, and all that other great content. Richie, welcome to the show. You've already said hello. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well indeed. How are you?
Well. I'm a little bit tired, but more so because I actually had to sleep in this morning, so I feel like due to my usual schedule, I'm actually overtired.
You're not used to it.
No, like my 11-month-old daughter, I'm very much overtired and refuse to sleep. So that's my world. But we're all gamers out there, and we're all familiar with being very, very tired when we shouldn't be, and going beyond our
staying
sleeping
up too
limits.
late. Yeah, staying up too late playing video games.
Playing video games. That is what I have to do now to get into it.
Do you find like the time between like say 9 p.m. and 2 o'clock in the morning it's about half an hour?
Yeah, it can go very, very quickly. I found myself at the moment between games, as we know from I think last week. Ever since I wrapped up on Sea of Stars, I'm kind of just in this. Yeah. I don't really want to start Avatar yet. I commit to it. I don't really want to start Cyberpunk yet, and because there's nothing really on the horizon other than Helldivers next week. Yeah. I'm just kind of floating between what do I want to do.
I've got a recommendation for you then.
I have a feeling you were going to say that.
Yeah.
So, well, you always start this week's show by, of course, getting into what we've been playing. Richie, it's been another week with work and life, but we're here to talk about games. What have you been playing this last week?
I completed, and got 100% in Hellblade.
And you said you don't have time to play video games.
Mate, you can do it in a weekend.
So this is Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice.
Sacrifice, yeah, the first one, not the second one. Our Discord, when I dropped the achievement, 100% achievement, our Discord the other night, I Discord, someone in our Discord was like, oh, thought it was the second one. I was like, no, we haven't got access to that yet.
No, I don't think anyone.
And if I had access to that, there's no way in hell I'd be able to drop that in the Discord.
So the first one then, this is obviously the precursor to the, I guess, Xbox's arguably biggest title of the year so far that we know about. Dated in May 21st, we have Senua's Saga.
Yeah, the Senua's Sacrifice is the first one. Senua's Saga will be the second one.
So you played through the first game on Xbox Game Pass as well, included.
I did.
Do you get the vibe the name Hellblade doesn't quite sit true with the franchise? Because that's the one thing I've always thought looking at the name. Like calling it Senua's insert name, Senua's insert name would be ample. The Hellblade part kind of seems like redundant from what I've seen of the game anyway.
Right. It makes sense.
Okay, it makes sense. I'll take that.
It's hell, not in like the Christian version of hell, but hell as in the Norse version of hell.
With one L?
It is spelt 2 L's in Hellblade, but with 1 L.
I'm just being facetious. How are you enjoying the game?
Yeah. It's awesome. Like, I think you would really, really like it. It's very kind of psychological. Definitely play it with either a very good set of like at least stereo speakers, or ideally surround sound, or a really good set of headphones, because it is kind of got that like 3D audio stuff going on, and it can be creepy as hell at times. Yeah, no pun intended.
We saw that in the trailer from the developer director, the sequel, where the recording crew were walking around the microphone going, "Richie, play this game."
Yeah. There's that stuff. There's that kind of stuff going on in the first game as well. Yeah, because it's very cerebral at times, but it is kind of a story-driven action game. There's no RPG elements in there. It's not technically the world I think is open, sort of, but it's quite a linear experience. So you're looking probably 8 hours to complete the story, and you might even do it quicker.
And it was the developer director kind of give you that nudge to go play it, didn't it? Because you were about to start Plague Tale Requiem.
Yeah, I was, because I platinum Final Fantasy 16. It's like, right, I want something relatively short to kind of pass the time between Final Fantasy 16 and Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth. And then when we found out the date of Hellblade, because I was always on the plans to play before I played Hellblade 2, because I definitely wanted to play Hellblade 2. And when I realized it was only going to be maybe like 6 to 10 hour experience, I thought, well, I'll do Hellblade now, and then I'll move on to Plague Tale. Just because I just fit it in quite nicely.
Perfect. So definitely recommend it then, yeah?
100%, yeah. It's really good. It's a short experience. This is one of the things where I think it definitely benefits from Game Pass, because even if you paid 50 quid for that, I could see how some people might feel a bit cheated by it, because it's not a big game. It is a very short, tight experience, and that's kind of what we're expecting from Hellblade 2 as well.
Yeah,
but the fact it's on Game Pass, I don't care about that. So
yeah, the devs did state in there at I can't get my words out. Developer Direct that the sequel, they weren't going to feel the need to expand and go to like an all-out 20, 30, 40-hour experience. It was based on the story they were trying to tell, and that's what it was going to be, a nice, condensed, focused, narrative-driven experience. And if a movie doesn't need to be 2 hours longer, why would you do it? And this game is so cinematic. I feel like that's a good level of control to have.
It does something I really appreciate in games where it feels like it's being created by a bunch of artists who are using the technology available to them to produce the best version of their vision of what this could be, rather than trying to tick arbitrary boxes and a checklist for a publisher.
Right. Fantastic. Well, that pivots nicely into what I'm playing at the moment. So I did tell you I was in a bit of a rut with what to play. Do I want to read a book instead? Do I catch up on a TV series? And there's always that like kind of itch, like I feel like I should be using my time to play something. So a couple of games of FC24, as you do, jump in, chip away on them using the good old PlayStation Portal. And then last night, Richie, someone dropped in our Discord server a screenshot of 100% achievement completion for a certain game, which was you. In fact, it was you talking about Hellblade. And I thought to myself, you know what? I'm pretty sure I have this game on PlayStation from somewhere back in the day. So I booted up my PS5, and I also have started Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, but I'm going for trophies on the PlayStation. Interesting thing I found out, though, Hellblade is a list of about 10 or 12 games that's not guaranteed to be compatible with PlayStation 5.
Really?
Yeah, so when you boot up the game, it comes up with a little error message at the top saying you may experience some issues with this game's compatibility, which I was like, I've never seen that before.
You don't have a PS4 anymore, do you?
Yes, I do, yeah. I got rid of the Pro, but I've still got the Days of Play Slim one that I had in the bedroom upstairs like years ago. But yeah, Hellblade, it was an interesting one. So there was a list of games that basically don't like travel across, and I was thinking, is this because the studio who made it was picked up by Microsoft like after launch? So the sequel inevitably is probably not going to come to PlayStation 5.
They're not guaranteeing support of the game onto future consoles.
Yeah, which is weird. I mean, the list is quite odd.
It might just be a precautionary thing. Just like, we're not going to guarantee the compatibility because we're not going to put any effort in, but it could still work perfectly fine.
But there's some weird technical thing, because if you look at the store, so apparently if you go to buy the game via your console on PS5, you can't find Hellblade in the storefront. You have to go via the mobile app, buy it, and then download it to your console that way. So the list of games that are no longer apparently on the storefront, there might be now, this is just an old list, but things like Doom, Mafia Trilogy, Manhunt, Minecraft Bedrock Edition, Star Ocean, Stardew Valley, Until Dawn, Rush of Blood, Wonderful 101, Little Big Planet 3. So this is a list of games that apparently on the PS5 store, you just cannot find them. But you can still buy them through the app. And Hellblade is one of them. So all that aside, though, I have been playing it. I've just opened the gates to the bridge.
Okay, yeah. So you're still fairly early.
Yeah, I think I played about 2 hours.
You've done the first two trials. It's the trial of Valraven, the trial of Serta.
Yes. Which I didn't realise it was so heavily Norse mythology. I knew it was to do with like Iceland and Scandinavian kind of culture.
I didn't.
But all of a sudden it was like we're talking about all this stuff that I'm like, it's basically like God of War, like what they're talking about, like the different approach to it. And
it's kind of Norse meets Celtic though.
It is, yeah. It's got that vibe.
Because Senua herself is a Pict, so she's from Scotland.
So yeah, so I again jumped into that and started playing it. So yeah, thoroughly enjoying it. And as you said, I think you telling me it was short enough
Yeah.
And the achievement list was easy. Was that thing that was like, oh, go on then. If I can get a platinum trophy from this in about 10 plus hours, and it's apparently, and like again, you know my taste, so you recommend it. Was like, right, okay, tick tick tick. I need something to play anyway. That's like I said, it's short and condensed. So, and we always were going to play it ahead of the sequel launching in May, and I thought, right, like rip that plaster off, get it done, and I'm looking forward to continuing to play Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. And a lot of people in our Discord are probably like, okay, we definitely got to check this out now. We've got 2 of them recommending it. So, go
just make sure you're picking up all the Lost Stones.
Yeah, which are they're quite easy to find so far, what I've noticed.
Yeah, but if you notice this kind of the ring of the runes on the Lost Stone, you can see little gaps, and it's kind of broken up into chapters. And they change color from red to blue when you've got them, so you can actually see in an area if you've got them all. So if you're getting like right to the end and you're seeing like, oh, there's one right in the middle, maybe go backtrack and have a look.
Interesting. Can you backtrack?
It might save you. You can backtrack, yeah.
Cool.
But especially if you're still in the same area, you can just go back, maybe find it. It does have a chapter select though if you finish. If you because I used that.
Even better.
And the chapter select tells you if you've missed one.
Wonderful. I love it when developers do that. Like that was one thing that really bugged me with Alan Wake 1 is I had 100 coffee thermoses to find, and you finish the game and it doesn't tell you which one you're missing. So it's like, okay,
the worst ones you're going to have is when you get to the Trial of Odin, because there's 11 in that chapter.
Right.
So the chapter is kind of broken up in a few different areas, but the chapter select doesn't tell you which area they're in.
All right, okay.
So yeah,
I'll figure it out. I'm quite the platinum / achievement hunter, so I'm sure we'll get there.
You'll be fine.
Speaking of achieving things, should we get into the actual show, because we're 12 minutes on the clock now already, and we've got a busy show lined up.
And we've been talking about an old game.
In lead up to the new game. Well, let's talk about a new game anyway with the news. Before we do get on into it, don't forget we do have a merchandise store. We'd love it if you go over there, buy yourself a GamerGuildTV mug, t-shirt, jumper, hoodie, or bandana for your dog, whatever you fancy. And as we've kind of alluded to there, we also have a wonderful, vibrant Discord chat as well. If you are a gamer out there, if you listen to the show on a weekly basis or you watch our live streams, there's a fantastic group of folks over there going very, very strong, talking about games, organising play-alongs, get-togethers, and such every single day of the week. So go jump in. We do appreciate it. Link is in the description below. Richie, Rob's not with us this week. He's got some busy work adulting to do. So if you could do us the honours of introducing us to the
graciously gathered Gamer Guild Gazette, aka the news.
And as always, every week, our news is brought to you by our wonderful guild heroes, the fantastic members who support this channel that extra little bit further, just like you can. From as little as 99p, you can join us on our bronze tier, get early access to this show, stickers and badges next to your name in the chat, and other exclusive perks and early videos. Richie, busy week this week. The world has been taken a storm by one Pokemon. I mean, Palworld. That's right. It's exploded. We played it this past Thursday up on the channel. It's all kicking off. Story number 1 is essentially 3 or 4 stories all folded into one, but everybody's talking about this game. It's the Pokemon with guns, which I think definitely does the game a disservice now we've played a couple of hours of it.
It's very much not a descriptive of what this game is. Yes, there's Pokemon style creatures, and yes, there are guns. But this game plays more like something like Valheim.
Yeah, we played nearly 3 hours and we never even really came across guns.
Well, technically, there is kind of Palworld battle things. I don't even really know how to describe it, because you think that Pokemon battles, very clear what that is. These are kind of battles. Yeah, it reminds me kind of a bit of like Pokemon Arceus rather than the main series thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's
where
funny
you can kind of,
Funny you should say Arceus, because it's actually more like Ark. Survival Evolved with Pokemon, I would say, with the survival crafting elements. But yeah, we jumped into it. We had a great time. Go check out the stream. Available up on the channel now on YouTube. In terms of the game, though, it's getting a lot of attention on it because it seems to have just picked up energy every single day this week. And in a weird way, as we head into yet another weekend, I feel like it's going to keep going up. Because usually, like, you see that drop-off as a game launches over a weekend. It gets everyone finishes work. They all play it. They all talk about it. And then we get back to our work week and the adulting kicks in and it kind of like lulls a little bit. Whereas this just keeps climbing. It's just passed a record this week of over 2 million concurrent players on Steam. And we should point out, Steam records don't include the wider world of gaming, such as Game Pass and people on Xbox, because that's where we played it. It was free in our Game Pass subscription. So there's also probably another 1 million or 2 or 3 playing it on Xbox platforms too. In terms of sales, though, it's also sold over 8 million copies in just over 6 days. So in less than a week, it sold 8 million. Add the Game Pass numbers onto it as well.
Easy broke 10 million. Easy.
This is the hottest thing in gaming right now. And to put it into context, Steam's kind of like concurrent players list. The top player for that one was PUBG back in the day, PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds. They hold the record for 3.257 million people playing it at any given time. Palworld, over 2 million. It's got a long way to go, but you know what?
But it's on the right track.
Damn impressive numbers.
It's one of them is really impressive and really a bit surprising. But when you kind of break down the elements of the game, it kind of makes sense why it'll be this popular. Because it's got Pokemon style characters in which they are adorable, they look well crafted, they are probably AI generated, to be honest, but they still look decent. They do kind of have a bit that enough character about them that they kind of are still got that memorable thing going on. It's a survival game. Survival games are always usually quite popular, especially in the kind of multiplayer space, because you can build a base, hang out with your friends, all the kind of social elements of that, without it being like overly competitive. And it's pretty much got Fortnite's art style, so that I think that the appeal for like young gamers, it's just ticking so many boxes. So I can absolutely see why kids will be falling in love with this game right now.
Yeah, it's also got that almost like that meme status about it as well, because there's so many news cycles talking about the plagiarism and lawsuits. It's almost like picking up energy out of like just sheer curiosity. That
pushes it right at the top of the news. It's our lead story for the week, and that's the same for pretty much every gaming podcast you're going to listen to.
Yep.
Every news site's going to be covering this to the death because of all the controversy.
Yeah, and it's all over it. And you're totally right.
It's very streamable.
If you told us like a couple of weeks back that Palworld Pokemon looking game that was going to come out in a few weeks will be the key number one story of episode 24, I'd have been like, will it though? Will it? And like you said, it's just gathered steam. Ironically, it's gathered momentum, and it's just skyrocketing through the charts. So I wouldn't put it past them selling 10 million plus copies by the time next week's show goes live. If not even this one. All the journalists down tools over the weekend, so we could come back in on Monday when this show goes up, and it's past 10 million, which is, from all intents and purposes, this is an indie company.
And it's a beta. It's an early access.
Early access still. Yeah,
this is not the final release.
And it's not on PlayStation yet either.
Yeah.
Which is a slight aside. Shuhei Yoshida from Sony is in charge of their indie teams or their indie curation. Somebody tweeted at him asking if it's going to come to PlayStation, and his response was he just tagged the person who's in charge of indie development at PlayStation. So he didn't confirm yes or no. He basically just tagged his colleague in the thread to say, you need to get on this. But I'm sure those conversations have happened, and it's just it's baffling. Like, we had a great time with it on Thursday, playing with the wonderful community out there. And again, join us every Thursday for our live streams, folks, as we play a variety of games. But in terms of this one, it just has that, like as you said, streamability, where we jumped in with friends, figured out the game. The base mechanics are quite simple to get your head around. We laughed at a few things. We talked about the Pokemon comparisons, but it was a very chill game. And I think a lot of survival games like Minecraft does this so well, where you kind of just lose yourself in the gathering and crafting, and again, you're not doing anything mind-blowing. But this is the thing, fun. It's
got that gameplay loop. You can spend a couple of hours just kind of building your base up, and then you could spend a couple of hours exploring the wilderness. Then you could spend a couple of hours just doing some Pokemon battles. There's multiple games in one. That it surprisingly works together.
It does.
It is rough around the edges, but again, it's early access. It's in beta, so there's definitely stuff that need work on.
Yeah,
like the building mechanics, the kind of snap-on thing didn't really work that well. Your house didn't. You just give up building the roof on your house.
I did. Leaks all the time.
Yeah.
But in terms of as you said, the game, it's rough around the edges, but it is an early access. They will push it. We got like cold kicked out at one point where the game just shut down and went straight back to my Xbox home screen without any prompt or error message or warning. It just went bloop, done. Like I'd shut down the whole thing.
I think that was potentially a server issue because it's probably went bigger than expected. The service will be on overload.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think they've put press releases out talking about that. But in terms of press releases, they've also, I guess, off the back of the momentum, the developers Pocket Pair came out and also laid out a roadmap for improvements for early access for the game, which is, again, it's that clever marketing beat of just like keeping the story ticking over. So this game, millions upon millions of people are enjoying. The devs now come out and say like, you're having fun, but it's only going to get better. And as part of the roadmap, they said in the short term, the studio will be addressing critical issues such as bugs and persistent load screen errors, etc. Further down the line, we're looking to bring in elements like PvP, endgame raid bosses, and a PAL arena for PAL PvP, which also will be included, plus new islands, more PALs, aka the Pokemon, bosses, and technologies will be added. On a more technical level, they've also said they're going to add Steam/Xbox crossplay feature, improving the Xbox version because it's significantly lacking in a couple of features, the Xbox version. Apparently it's to do with certification. It takes a little bit longer to get like hot fixes and updates through Xbox because they've got a stricter code, I guess, than Steam. Server transfers and improvements to the building system. And they kind of tweeted out like an image showing what they were going to do. A lot of it expected. A lot of it makes sense, right? The PvP, the Pokemon Arena style, like we've Pokemon Stadium, we've had that in the past. It all does kind of play into it, which, just what a success story, I guess, Richie.
Now, the only slight concern is, will they actually be able to implement all this stuff? Or will Nintendo be Nintendo about things?
Well, that's it, isn't it? Nintendo obviously have probably been attached to things, reported on. It's pretty much been published as Pokemon with guns outside of their control. And Nintendo, again, I personally think it's got to that point, and now we've played it as well. It's almost like it falls under like parody rules, where it's different
enough.
Yeah,
I do actually think it is different enough. It's a survival game where you can have creatures.
Yeah. If anything, it's the internet that is pushing the agenda of it being Pokemon with guns, because they've never actively said like that. It does.
But the press, the key art and stuff looks very much like Pokemon with guns, but it's not a Pokemon game.
Yeah.
It doesn't play like a Pokemon game.
And then,
I likened it to Arceus a bit, but that was more in kind of the open world, how you can throw your Pokemon out and you're interacting with the world a bit more. Mm-hmm. But Arceus is not a survival game.
Yeah.
It's basically a collectathon game.
And then this is where we could get into we won't get too much into the weeds, but talking about like Pokemon, we've had Digimon as well in the past. Like that came and went perfectly fine. You've got
digital monsters. Digimon are the champions.
You've got Dragon Quest. I've seen a lot of people making comparisons to as well. So there's a lot of like that thing where the reality is they're all derivative from like real world animals, really. Like we were looking at was it Marmoset or something, the big elephant thing?
Yeah.
It's basically a woolly mammoth. Like the creativity that's gone into making that is like we've took a woolly mammoth and we've made it green. It's not.
And the reality is
the biggest stretch.
There's over 1,000 Pokemon. If you kind of go try to do like the cute creature thing, you're going to brush up close to Pokemon somewhere.
Absolutely,
it's almost impossible not to.
Everybody loves.
I do think they have consciously though.
Oh yes.
Thought about Pokemon when they're doing it.
Yes.
So there is that issue. I think that is absolutely deliberate. That some of them do look like Pokemon.
Yeah.
They know that they're very aware that they are going to get the Pokemon with guns, and they've leaned into it without actually saying it themselves.
Mm-hmm. And you're totally right with creative creatures. I mean, the world in itself fell in love with Baby Yoda, aka Grogu, in the last couple of years, right? Here he is for everyone. Welcome special guest to the show, Grogu with his broken ear tucked in there. He's basically just Gizmo from the Gremlins.
Yeah.
Big, massive ears, cute wide eyes, small demeanour, just makes little giggles and noises. Bright light, bright light. And everyone falls in love with him. And all they've done is they make him green, just like that Marmoset character. But I digress. In terms of the Pokemon Company over at Nintendo, of course, protecting their assets litigiously as the Pokemon and Nintendo do, they've finally made an official statement, and I quote, "We intend to investigate and take appropriate action and measures to address any acts that infringe on intellectual property rights related to Pokemon. We've received many inquiries regarding another company's game released in January," so they don't even mention like the name, by the game by name. We have not granted any permission for the use of Pokemon's intellectual property or assets in that game. We intend to investigate and take appropriate measures to address any acts that infringe on intellectual property rights related to the Pokemon. We will continue to cherish and nurture each and every Pokemon and its world, and work together to bring Pokemon through into the future. It's a statement. It's no surprise there. The CEO of Pocket Pair has came out and actively said, like, we make our games very seriously. We have absolutely no intention of infringing upon the intellectual properties of other companies. But there has been talk of Pocket Pair's other games have apparently used AI in the past. So it's like, is the AI pulling from the derivative arts of Pokemon through the internet to create these things?
That's a whole other conversation to have, I think, with AI in art, which I don't think we should have today.
No.
But we probably should have at some point, because it could be a case of, if they're using AI to like kind of help develop the PALs, the AI could be getting trained off Pokemon. That's already been
we've seen that, haven't we?
So then, are you infringing?
But you didn't make it.
But there again,
it was AI.
Yeah, but you've used the AI. This is one of the big issues. I said we weren't going to have it, but it's one of the big issues with AI is where things stand on a legal and creative standpoint. But it is a big discussion that I actually think might be interesting to have Rob's take on as well in the future. But I think this screams of a settlement deal. I think Palworld's got so big so quickly that I think Nintendo would actually struggle to actually bring it down now.
Yeah.
Even Nintendo would struggle unless it was very clear and deliberate. But then the burden of proof will be on Nintendo to find that.
And then it's just, is it worth the effort, right?
I think, and then things will get very lawyery, and it's like, would this just cost both companies more money to try and do this thing, or could they just go, you know what, give us a sack of cash and we'll just ignore you?
Yeah, that seems to be the best approach. And again, I think Palworld, as we said, like 10 million plus units, no doubt by the end of next week or something. They've got enough cash in the bank now to fight back with Nintendo. If this was like a small indie team and it sold like 100,000 copies and Nintendo went after them, they'd be bricking it thinking, crap, Nintendo coming after us for our first big-ish game. But now it's past like 8 million. And again, the thing that I think adds a lot of countermeasure to me is it's on Game Pass. So Xbox are actively promoting this game. Phil Spencer and Sarah Bond are actively tweeting about this game. I don't think Xbox, knowing what their relationship, which is quite good with Nintendo, I don't think they wouldn't have gone through their own marketing teams and said, like, should we be talking about this? Should we be promoting this? With it potentially infringing on an IP
it's not even
of
the
our
marketing
rival.
teams. It was not even the marketing teams. Xbox will have sat down with their lawyers and looked over this game, because it's obvious that it is approaching Pokemon in terms of what it's offering. And Pokemon being the biggest IP literally the biggest IP in the world, they're going to be cautious with that. So I think at the very least, Xbox will have some clauses, and whatever deal they've got to bring it over and on the Game Pass will have some clauses where they can just kind of probably go, nope, not involved.
Yeah, they can do. And reading from the IGN article, video game lawyer Peter Lewin is quoted as saying, one company cannot stop another from making a game about catching and battling monsters. However, if a company copies important aspects of how exactly the other company expresses that game concept, example, characters, story beats, names, etc., that's where an issue can arise, which I think Palworld does more than enough to kind of differentiate it from that. It gives you a nameless character, it's got a nameless world, Palworld, I guess. It gives you a nameless world, and the characters are all, like I said, they are just derivative from like animals to a degree, which, what are you going to do?
My counterpoint to that would be, when it comes to the big corporations, it's not necessarily about what is and what isn't legal. It's about sometimes what they can get away with when it comes to the law. And so sometimes, even if a big corporation knows they don't have a legal case, if they just have so much more resources, they could pressure someone into a settlement, or something, or just basically, if a massive company going after a small company can literally just go, well, we have the ability to just throw lawyer after lawyer after lawyer after lawyer at this case for pretty much forever until we bleed you dry and your company ends up bankrupt.
Starve them of oxygen, absolutely.
Yeah, so this is why I think it's probably a settlement, even if Palworld haven't done anything wrong.
Yeah.
Excluding potential complications of AI stuff. That could actually be a huge talking point, actually, if they do have used AI.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, I've seen stuff going around on the internet of like where they've 3D models from Scarlet and Violet and they've overlaid them with other ones. But it's like anyone can take that after the game's launch now. You don't know what the internal workings are. Back to the video game lawyer says the main focus at the moment seems to be on the PAL design models rather than the concept of the game as a whole, which I think is right. Like, there's no one saying like the gameplay or anything is like Pokemon. They're very much like saying the characters. There's so much likeness and similarities. Like, we were playing on Thursday, right? And we were basically, every time we found a new PAL, we were talking about which one that could actually be. What does it actually look like?
I think that might be where that actually could be in a bit of issue, because there was somewhere we could just obviously point out, like, oh, it's this Pokemon, or maybe a slight combination of these two Pokemon. That might be where they're in a bit of hot water with this. But regardless of how they've bought, anyway, that aside, it's sold amazingly well. I'm very interested to see kind of how its trajectory goes. Like, will it tail off? Will people still be playing this in like a month's time? It came out at a great time of the year where there's not really much anything else on. Suicide Squad next month, I think. Yeah, we'll see. And a bunch of other things. But yeah, I'm interested to see where this goes, what it grows into. But I guess for both you and me, Richie, what we're hoping for is the Pokemon Company take note. And I'd like to see, I think one of the reasons to round out this piece is why it's doing so well is because people have been pushing Nintendo to do something different with Pokemon for so long. And Arceus was, I guess, a step in the right direction, but not enough was different. And I think this has almost got that energy behind it, because this is what people have wanted, something like fresh and different enough. I think I like the idea of there being like, because Pokemon's such a strong IP, you can have different SKUs.
Yeah.
Like, you can have your more traditional Pokemon game, which I would personally prefer, because I found Scarlet and Violet too open and too big, and that open world of it I just didn't really like.
It's too empty.
It was a lot of empty space, and I just found my party getting completely over leveled. So it meant that there was no challenge to it, and there was stuff like that I didn't like. And this is not including any of the janky stuff. So that's why I kind of bent out on it. And it's like, I didn't like the always on XP share. Like, that is one of them things that frustrates the hell out of me with Nintendo. It's like, you had a good system and you've made it worse. Like, stuff like that. I think for me, XP share, just make it optional. Make it a menu option so I can turn it on or off. You've done that before and it was good.
It was good.
But, yeah.
Well, we share XP here on the channel anyway, between us.
We do.
All of us. That's how we grow together. We're all level 34 at the moment, you, me, and Rob. But that puts a wrap on Palworld. Let's move on to our second story of the week. With the imminent news of the arrival of a State of Play, we've got some little stories that I've dropped this week in relation to PlayStation. And there's almost like enough happening. There must be a State of Play. Story number 2 takes us over to the world of Until Dawn. The video game that came back out in 2015, I want to say off the top of my head. Yeah, 2015. It's from Supermassive, who've obviously gone on to make Dark Pictures Anthology and The Quarry, with all the, like, the typical horror tropes. PS4 classic back in the day. We played it over Halloween. Great game. Stellar cast, who I guess fairly unknown at the time of release. According to Reliable Leaker, PlayStation 5 and a PC release will be a brand new version of Until Dawn, and its imminent announcement is going to come within the next 2 weeks, say sources. In terms of the PC release for Until Dawn, that's not the only news story. We've also got a Death Stranding Backbone controller that's been announced.
We do.
With the imminent news, there's been leaks of the Death Stranding 2's subtitle name, which is apparently called Onto the Beach or Into the Beach, which is doesn't seem Death Stranding-y. But basically the internet at the moment, all the usual reliable sources are pointing towards a State of Play, Richie, potentially coming within the next 2 weeks. In terms of Until Dawn, do you think that's due a remaster right now?
Yeah, I mean, if it was like 2015, then it's like 9 years now since it came out. So yeah, and it was, I think, for Supermassive, it was their hit, the main hit. Arguably. I think, yeah, absolutely. I think like Dark Pictures Anthology hasn't landed the same way, probably the way they'd like. I know there's people who like them games, but it just never seems to have the same sort of mindshare that Until Dawn got. And I can't think of any other really Supermassive game that has got to them levels. No,
I think The Quarry was received okay, but I don't think it had the same hype. We spoke about it on last week's show, right? That they've also announced that they're doing a teen slasher genre movie spin-off of Until Dawn as well, or a spin-off or a version of it, I guess. And I think Rob was saying that the director's like spot on. It's a great choice for it. But of course, this has got like Rami Malek and Hayden Panettiere in, so it's almost like a remaster, puts it right back front and center of, I guess, storefronts, but with, I guess, more known actors. Now, having Rami Malek as a front and center of a movie-esque project on the PS5, if you've never played it before, maybe never heard of it, I think it's quite an easy win to get for PlayStation.
Yeah, absolutely.
In terms of, I don't know how much better it can look, because it looked quite great back in the day. So I don't know what polish they would need to do. It's maybe just that PlayStation synergy they're trying to get with TV productions and the game, because we saw it with The Last of Us, didn't we? Worked really well.
And I think they've they've realised actually doing remasters of PS4, especially early PS4 games, onto PS5, it just means they're selling a ton of more copies of it. And so that's why they keep doing it. So as much as I think a lot of people complain about remasters, but it's like, well,
just don't buy it.
They remaster a game and people buy it, what's the problem? You don't have to buy it.
Yeah.
I always think with remasters and remakes, as long as the original is preserved, I have no issue doing as many as you want.
Absolutely. In terms of the game itself, it's because with it being a horror game, I guess it has this, because we have an annual celebration that celebrates horror and scary and spooky things every single year. I almost think horror genres have like a bit of a lift, like a continued lift year in, year out. I wouldn't say Star Wars and Grogu is horror, but it has a bit of a bump every year where people go like, I want to play something scary. And I think that's why Resident Evil almost like just keeps having that like boon and that resurgence. Even though the franchise kind of tailed off, it still is like something scary, something that's going to make you jump. It has that groundswell every kind of October time. So yeah, Until Dawn, put it out on the latest platform, promote it, the movie's coming out. It seems like an easy, simple opportunity for some synergy to go with it. The biggest picture, or the biggest question, I guess, is does this lend credence to we're going to see a state of play in 2 weeks' time? I think it's getting to the point where Sony need to. It's been a long time since we had one. We don't really know what's coming out beyond Helldivers and Final Fantasy, which are both February, if I'm not mistaken.
And I think, to me, Helldivers isn't... I don't think... There's people looking forward to it, but I don't think it's one of them games that people are looking at as a tentpole for the year.
No one's played it yet. They've not done any beta. I've not seen any influencers who've been and played like a pre-build. It's just coming out in next week, and no one's got any...
To be honest, Helldivers, it probably needs a push itself.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, I don't think Final Fantasy needs... I don't think you need to worry about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
No.
If I'm Sony, you just don't need to worry about that. You're going to stick it in... If they do a state play, you're going to stick it in there anyway, because it's just stick a new trailer on it. Fine. To be honest, it'd probably be my opener. Just go, yep, here it is. This is probably the biggest game you're looking forward to in the next few months as a Sony exclusive. It's there. I think if Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, if you're going to buy it, you already probably know you're going to buy it at this point because you played the remake. So
yeah, but then to add on with that, the Death Stranding Backbone control. Like, why are we getting this several years after the game releases?
The thing is, though, the Backbone controller is not a PlayStation one. If you look at the graphics, I mean, I think it looks sexy as hell, like translucent orange.
It's a BB canister, isn't it? It's the same thing that little babies are in the game.
But it's your ABXY buttons.
That's true. I hadn't noticed that. So it's not.
So this is not a Sony thing. I think it does come with a copy of the game actually for PC, if I'm right.
Oh, it's to do with the iPhone launch as well.
Yeah, it's like the iPhone Android kind of launch kind of thing. So it's probably the PC version of the game ported, I'd imagine, rather than the PlayStation version.
Interesting. But
it could get a Death Stranding 2 at a state of play.
Well,
so Until Dawn, Helldivers, Final Fantasy, Death Stranding 2. That's looking like a solid state of play already.
I mean,
adding a few things that we don't know about.
The developer Direct did really well, and that was just 4 games.
Yes.
There's 4 games.
I've listed 4 games of equivalent quality.
Yeah. And then obviously throw in a glimpse at what one of your other first parties are doing, because they've all been radio silent. Like, give us a tease at the end for Ghost of Tsushima 2. All I need to see is a clip of Jin with a silhouetted like thing with cherry blossom falling in the background, and someone says like, "Are you ready for your next challenge?" or something, and then a little like pan flute whistle, and then it just goes to black, comes up Ghost of Tsushima, whatever the name is. I'm done. I'm sold. 2025. Give it to
15 to 30-second tease. That's all I need. Just let me know to come. Just let me know you're on with it.
They could also push Rise of the Ronin. That comes out next month. Sorry, no, March.
There you go. I forgot about that. That's so you might not actually. That's 5 games before you start looking at other things that we don't know about. Mm-hmm. But I do think you probably, if you're Sony, you do want one more thing to tell people about. Ideally for later in the year.
And I think we're ready for it. It's been some time. We've said the start of the year. Like again lamenting what do I play this year? There's nothing on my radar other than maybe Helldivers and then Indiana Jones at the back end of the year. Obviously Hellblade in May.
Fantasy 7.
No, not for me. Not for me at this moment in time. But either way, Until Dawn Remaster seems to be definitively coming, and there's an announcement we're going to be within 15 days. So there's rumours swirling. Maybe on next week's show we'll be talking about a locked-in state of play. In the meantime, though, let's pivot over to the world of Microsoft, where unfortunately they are laying off just short of 2,000 employees. This is off the back of the Activision Blizzard merger. ZeniMax and everyone is involved in this one too. Basically, the game industry has been rife with layoffs for quite some time now. I think just tech industries as a whole. They merged, obviously, they completed their deal to purchase ABK back end of last year. And I think we've always been under the assumption, Richie, when you merge companies, there's always a duplication of roles and positions where people are doing the same thing, and it's an inevitability, unfortunately.
There's redundancy.
Yeah.
I hate to see the scale of these sort of layoffs, though.
Well, I think this is why it doubly hits home and hurts a bit more, is because I think Microsoft just finished the stock market trading with a company value of like $3 trillion the day of these announcements. So it's just that extra unfortunate irony of this company's making cash hand over fist, and yet they can't afford to keep on these employees to do their jobs.
It's possible though. I mean, they're laying off depending what article you read, anywhere from 1,800 to 2,000 employees. It's possible that they'll do the classic thing of, okay, we don't need someone in your current job position, so that's why we're laying it off. Mm-hmm. However, you are free to apply for any other position within Microsoft, and try and keep you in the Microsoft family kind of thing. Depending
on where you are, again, it spans across multiple countries, so the rules and legislation differ from even just state to state in the US. Yeah. But I know in the UK over here, yes, if you're offered redundancy or you're being laid off, is they almost give you protected status to apply for other jobs within, because they essentially want to retain your talent as best they can. You'd like to think. And I think in the UK, there's laws that say they need to give you an equivalent offer based on your skill set, and you can go down review and other type things. But essentially, it's still the reality is there's going to be a lot of people who unfortunately lose. In Phil Spencer's statement, he does thank them for the hard work and making the realities of Activision and Blizzard's success come to life. But when you've got two people who do the exact same thing, it is going to happen. Unfortunately,
and to be fair, Activision Blizzard King wasn't exactly a company in good kind of standing when it came to how people viewed that company. So restructure was always going to be on the cards. And now Microsoft have had several months now of actually having full access to that company. They've probably been able to come up with the plans. I just don't like when these sort of numbers are involved in terms of employees. I feel like I've struggled to see how this could be a very targeted kind of very intelligent approach. It doesn't feel like you're going department by department and going, okay, you, I can see the value. You're probably, unfortunately, you're the one who's not carrying the weight, adding as much we can do without you because your job is largely covered by these people and somewhere else. That kind of very kind of meticulous target approach. I think a lot of these times I wonder is it just a case of you need to cut 10% of your staff in this department. We've got too many people in that department, so get rid of some people.
Yeah, I think there's almost a strategic roadmap made from above because they need to streamline and cut costs because of obviously raising inflation and stuff. We all know the world we live in. Everything just costs shit tons more now than it ever has done. And we won't go down that rabbit hole, but there's certain departments that it leads to be an interesting one. From Windows Central, Jace Corden reports that Microsoft has shut down departments dedicated to bringing Xbox games to physical retail, which after last year's leaks of the all digital Xbox Series X, the cylinder that's going to come out probably later this summer, and then with the announcement that Hellblade 2 is going to be digital only, so the first big Xbox title of the year is not getting a disc release. And with the rise of Game Pass, and arguably probably most Xbox... Remember, we reported last week, PS4 sold more physical copies than Xbox did in the UK last year. That shows you that Xbox does not really have much of a physical presence anymore. Them shutting down entire departments dedicated to physical retail, Richie, you said it for some time, Xbox doesn't see its future in the actual box itself, but the ecosystem. Are these cutbacks and reductions just another sign that Xbox are the first company to take that big leap? And that if we take the blinders off without realising it, I think we're already 1 foot in the door there.
Oh, I think we're more than 1 foot in the door. I think this has been a long time coming. But I think, yeah, you're right. I think Xbox are the first company to really make a big move in it. And I do feel sorry for everyone who works in that. And part of me, as much as I don't mind digital media, I don't mind cloud gaming, stuff like that, there are always going to be the argument for physical games because it has game preservation, and it means that if they close the service or decide to pull it from the storefront, you still have access to it. It feels still more like you own the game rather than a license to play that could be revoked at any time. Mm-hmm. Where the reality is you just have a license to play the game, which can be revoked at any time.
Yeah.
I think it is inevitable. That's why I kind of accepted. Why when we first started this podcasting stuff with cloud gaming, especially with Stadia, it's why I was open to Stadia, because at that point I'd already felt an all digital future wasn't inevitable, and cloud gaming was probably just the perfected form of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. But it is an interesting one. I had that kind of dilemma going back to Hellblade of, if I enjoy the game, I want to have it like physically. I want that like I really enjoyed the Plague Tale games, and I don't have either of them on physical copy because I think one came free through a subscription service, the first one, and then the second one it was just, I think, was digital only, possibly, can't remember. But either way, I had that dilemma with Hellblade when the second one's come to Game Pass. There's no physical release. The old one's locked away on PlayStation, probably not going to get the sequel. So then it's this almost like drip-fed, I'm slowly being conditioned to not care about physical as much. Like it really hurts me in a way. Like if I really enjoy the Indiana Jones game that comes to Xbox later this year, that I don't have a copy of it because I love Indiana Jones. I've got the big collector's edition of all the Blu-rays back there, the steelbooks. To not have that franchise like physically on my shelf, and then if they suddenly decide, if LucasArts go, you know what, Harrison Ford's likeness is only 10 years long, he's gone. Not he's gone, but I mean, it might be. He's an old fella. But you know what I mean? Like, at what point do they, his estate say, you're not allowed to use our granddad's likeness anymore, pull it from the store, and then because it's digital only, you can't play Indiana Jones, whereas I can go dig out
time-lapse.
This and still play a PS2 game, and it's timelessly locked in there for eternity, and that's my PS2 breaks.
That is a big issue, and it's something I think the gaming industry is going to have to figure out, because it could go the way of like music, where pretty much you can get pretty much any song, any album that's ever been written on any music streaming service, any premium music streaming service. Mm-hmm. It's just kind of there. That's just how that industry is nowadays, for better for worse in terms of like the artists, but that's just how it is. But then when you look at things like TV and movies, there's just stuff that you just can't access anymore.
Hey, Song of the South.
There's stuff you can't access anymore, and there's just stuff that is sometimes caught up in just like the rights ownership, legal battles, or if there's multiple different rights holders and they're no longer talking, and it's like things can get pulled and it can get very messy. And so it's
scalper's
there needs to be some sort of way of kind of accommodating for that to kind of figure that out. But to be honest, I don't think the big companies give a damn about that, because they're always on to the next thing, because they just want to keep making money.
Yeah.
It's just something I think us as consumers
have to accept.
Are really going to have to push ourselves to kind of hold these companies to account and call them out when they do shit we don't like. Yeah. Like, there's nothing else we can do, really.
Yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it, where I always go back to Song of the South, because when Disney Plus launched, and they were like, "Oh, we've got all of the old movies like in our catalog," it's like, well, actually, you're missing this one because it's got potential racial problems going on in it because it's an old movie from a
Probably
certain
more
era.
potential.
And rather than just put it on the platform with that caveat at the start of saying this was made in an era when depictions of X, Y, Z were different and wrong.
If you're offended by this, and please do watch it. I have a full-on disclaimer before.
Absolutely, and that's the movie. There's the theme park ride, Splash Mountain. That's currently getting rebranded to take away the branding of it as well. But basically, it's a beloved family movie from back in the day. VHS, £2,000 on eBay now. Not available on streaming services. Never made the jump across to DVD, so it's literally stuck on the VHS platform. And this is the movie where the Zippity Doozah song comes from.
Yeah,
and it's just gone, lost. You can't watch it, maybe on YouTube.
That's the sort of thing. I hope it ends up in a museum or something. We probably need more museums dedicated to entertainment media in general. Just
back in my day,
for some things that we look at and go, that's not appropriate anymore. It probably shouldn't have been made at the time, but it was iconic at the time. You don't want to ignore history.
Yeah,
and that's what museums are for.
It happened. Yeah, exactly.
This happened. You put it in the museum. You have an explanation of why this was made and the values of the time, and you have an explanation of why it's no longer widely available.
Exactly. It belongs in a museum. Stop bringing Grogu into it. It doesn't.
It's just on my desk.
It's all Lucasfilm IP. Give us a How the Duck remake. But we digress. I guess off the back of this news, obviously, shout out to all developers. Hopefully, they'll find themselves. I'm sure they'll find themselves employment elsewhere in the industry. It's ever growing and ever evolving. One of the other cancelled projects was Blizzard had been working on a survival game, codenamed Odyssey, and it was in development for over 6 years. And part of these layoffs, you understand that they've shuttered that entire team. So the company that was working on it. This comes from a Bloomberg article, saying it started development 6 years ago. It followed a concept pitch from Craig Amai in 2017. It was a survival game in a similar vein to Minecraft or Rust, but it was going to be a more polished experience. While originally developers had kept the focus on IP such as Diablo in the past, they had about 100 people working on this one, and it grew into a larger working force. They had to switch engines halfway through development from the typical Blizzard engine, which was Synapse, over to Unreal Engine. That caused some problems, as with engine switches usually do. And eventually, they were targeting a 2026 launch, which the devs felt was a bit too optimistic. And then eventually, I'm guessing at some point between the buyout, the merger, the time it took, probably the money invested in the current market, they basically decided to shutter the whole thing. So isn't it ironic after Palworld comes out and does so well as a survival crafting game, that Blizzard, who were fantastic at these kind of open world continued service games, they probably could have been one of the better people to look after, to shepherd a game like this in. It's done. Odyssey is done. Possibly,
but first of all, the engine move was originally prototyped in Unreal and then got moved to Synapse. Synapse is Blizzard's. It's used for mobile games. It can up to 100 players per map.
Because they probably wanted to launch across everything, right? So you got a mobile counterpart, and risky.
So my only thought is Microsoft's team. I'm guessing the Microsoft team have went through this with a fine tooth comb, see what the game is, see what the value is, and probably maybe just thought it's just, if they're looking at it and going, we need to cut costs, we need to make this a bit more of a lean operation as we kind of implement our own vision for what Activision Blizzard King's going to be going forward. They've looked at this game that has never really been talked about much. It's not out there yet. It's still quite a bit long way off. And if they're looking at it and going, we're not, if it's if the devs are going, a 2026 release is maybe that's maybe where we're kind of looking at.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, actually, the devs said that believe to think that 2026 is optimistic. So suggesting maybe at least another 3 years of development. Is it just a money sink for Microsoft, unfortunately? It's a shame, I think, when there's so many people working on it, probably putting the heart and soul to make this the best game possible. But it does feel like this was very easy on the chopping block, unfortunately, because of the merger.
Yeah, you would imagine they'll get together and do a whole base study review of all the companies and their IP.
I'm guessing they've done it. I'm guessing this is the results of it.
Yeah, I'd agree. Go through, trim the fat, essentially, refocus. And we know the more studios Microsoft have acquired, you've got to imagine it becomes a bit unruly from a logistical standpoint. And we kind of saw that a little bit with the Redfall launch. Like Phil Spencer actively came out and said like we should have got more hands-on with the team over there at Arcane, and they held their hands up and said it's kind of our fault that it was in the state it was. We didn't give them the additional support or they might have needed. And they said they were going to learn lessons from that, and going forward they were going to be more hands-on. But when you're expanding globally, there's only so many people, right, who can get their hands in on it and oversee it. And it's kind of like Kevin Feige in the MCU, where it's grown to such a scale now. It's like, how can one man and one small team really oversee the quality assurance of everything?
And I think it's fair to say you've seen a drop in quality in the MCU since Endgame.
Oh, undoubtedly. But without going down that rabbit hole, and you pulled Grogu up to the camera again, he's had to trim the fat. But it's one of them things, isn't it? So it's a shame. Blizzard, like, again, it's nice to see Blizzard potentially working on something outside the realm of what they normally work on. But now they're part of Microsoft, maybe they'll be able to flex in different areas, like a lot of the Call of Duty support teams. We're hoping.
Part of me, when I saw the engine, like it was an engine that's kind of prioritized for mobile. Part of me wonders, is that part of the thing? Because you remember, like, was it Diablo Immortal at BlizzCon?
Yeah,
like it was the one more thing, and it went bad. That is like one of the worst press conferences I've ever seen. It's like
you don't tease your audience.
And what was worse is like the guy on stage just didn't seem to understand why people were so disappointed in it. I know millions and millions and millions and millions play mobile games, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with mobile games. But it's like Blizzard are beloved for being in the hardcore PC space with beloved games, things like StarCraft and Warcraft and Diablo, and like to be starting to prioritize mobile games.
Sign of the times. But speaking of mobile games, I want to pivot away to our next story of the week, which is mobile apps and cloud gaming and gaming storefronts returning to the world of iOS. Apple made an announcement this week that starting earlier in the week, the App Store is now going to allow streaming apps and services. This means the likes of Xbox Cloud Gaming Streaming, GeForce Now, which were only previously accessible via a web browser, will now be able to feature fully featured apps within the App Store. Developers can now submit a single app with the capability to stream all the games offered in their catalogue, Apple wrote in a blog post earlier this week. These changes apply worldwide, according to the company. So we actually covered it extensively back on the Sounds of Stadia podcast, if you recall. Apple basically would not allow Epic to have a storefront on there. They would not allow Xbox. You wouldn't allow Google Stadia to have a storefront on there because they didn't like the thought of people making purchases through the app that did not... Basically,
they didn't get the cut.
Apple didn't get the 30% cut or whatever it is of any App Store purchase because technically the purchases were made direct to Xbox and GeForce Now and stuff. So they didn't like it. They went through this whole legal matter. Epic, I think, were the big drivers behind it because you can imagine the scale of Fortnite, every purchase made on Fortnite, whether it's for
Epic
cosmetics or not.
Fortnite was pulled from Apple.
Yeah. In a way, it's like rightly so. It's like just because you own the storefront, why do you get a 30% cut of every single transaction? Which is what they thought. They took them to court.
There's an argument saying if I own the device, it's my device. You shouldn't have to dictate so many rules about how I use my device. That's what arguably the biggest criticism of Apple, where they have this very tight integrated ecosystem, which can be amazing for what it does. But if you don't want to do the way things Apple want you to do, it becomes very, very restrictive, very, very quick, which is why I'm more of an Android fan.
Well, then on a consumer standpoint, if Apple own the storefront, like, it's their shop. If I'm a shop owner, I should be allowed to do what I want with my shop.
The problem is, I own the device, I should be able to put a different storefront in there. If I don't want to buy from them, I've already bought a device from them.
Well, don't buy my device, I would say.
That's why I don't buy Apple devices.
You have that option, which is, again, without taking you and me to court and Judge Grogu coming into it.
So there's an anti-consumer thing, but...
It is.
To be honest, I think this decision is... Well, the Epic lawsuit and stuff is definitely part of it. I think the Vision Pro is part of it as well.
Yeah, that's another point. A big one for me is the European Commission body who are just like giving Apple shit at the moment. We know the charging cables are having to change from Lightning to USB-C to get in line with everybody else as well.
Yeah.
I think them basically being constantly investigated for like anti-competitiveness is basically part of it saying like, look, you've had it your way for way too long, and it's anti-consumer. It's not fair. It's monopolistic as well, and that
how much waste is generated by every single time Apple slightly changed the size of the Lightning connector? Because anytime it gets a new iPhone, all the devices that use that just get chucked in the bin, chucked in the skip.
They don't do that regularly, to be fair. We've had Lightning cable for 10 plus years. But in terms of the storefront, just imagine if Google Stadia had stuck it out, Richie. They would have had Baldur's Gate, Game of the Year, award-winning on the platform. They would have had an app store built into iOS, open to millions and millions. Hell, they might have even had Palworld, Richie. Who knows? Who knows? They might have done.
It does feel like something that they could have got.
It definitely does feel like a indie company that they would have got on with early access, but we digress. Moving away from Apple, the iOS store, to other storefronts and other potential physical hardware, the Nintendo Switch rumours will not stop. Treat yourself with the new report saying Nintendo Switch 2 is going to feature an 8-inch LCD display, not OLED, trying to keep the cost down, but compared to the original Nintendo Switch's 6.2-inch display, it looks like these reports are coming from to the tech industry side of manufacturing, where we normally get leaks. Actually, we normally get leaks to do with like accessories, like cases, and the companies who get given the dimensions for making the cases can usually extrapolate from that, like, oh, actually, if this case is 8 inches wide, the console must be 8 inches wide. Simple to do. But yeah, the issue, these rumours are coming out of just, the orders going in for LCD displays. Can't get my words in a muddle. Richie, it's happening, right? Nintendo Switch 2. We don't really need to talk on this too much because there's probably going to be a direct maybe in the next couple of weeks as well.
I'm okay with it not being OLED as long as it is a kind of hybrid console. If it is a Switch 2, basically take your Switch and make it better. I'm okay with it not being OLED because if you want the best gaming experience for that device, you're going to be in front of your TV. So the screen on it is going to be when you're in portable mode, which I don't mind that being a reduced quality if it gives you things like better battery life. As long as the quality is good enough.
Yeah. And
I'd rather prioritize the games running well and looking decent and decent battery life rather than an amazing looking game that runs like crap and kills your battery in half an hour.
Yeah. And you've heard me sing praises of the PlayStation Portal, which isn't OLED. It's also LCD. That's an 8-inch display, and that looks gorgeous. But
it's still quite small, so you don't need as high fidelity or anything. It can be absolutely fine. Yeah. And plus, they'll bring out an OLED model eventually.
They will. It's just multiples. They'll bring out a Switch 2
They'll bring out a light mod, and then they'll bring out an OLED version. Yeah. Nintendo will keep it written on it.
It's like they know what they're doing. But in terms of, reports coming out, 8-inch display, I'm happy because going back to playing my Switch after playing the Portal, you realise how small the screen actually is and how wide the bezels are on that original version. But again, no surprise. Moving on to a couple of quick game announcements with this week's news. We've got the announcement that WWE 2K24 is set for a March release with deluxe editions coming with early access. We know this happens. It's the 40th anniversary of WrestleMania, and 2K, they want a special edition of the game to come out as well. But in terms of the game, Richie, we don't play wrestling games. Rob's probably more that kind of wheelhouse. I used to, years ago. I used to buy the early iterations of SmackDown versus Raw. But
it might be worth
growing out of it.
It might be worth coming back to this next week when Rob's back because I don't have anything to say. I'm not a wrestling fan. I don't play the games. You at least have been a bit of a wrestling fan on and off. So has Rob. I've just not ever cared. So.
Yeah, Rob's still into his UFC and everything. But in terms of this, I watched the clips and stuff online. I really enjoyed the Royal Rumble. But it's similar if you're not into football and when people start talking about this year's EA Sports FC edition, you kind of like gloss over a little bit. But it's been announced, coming out imminently. Multiple platforms, PC, not backwards compatibility, but backwards sales with PS4, Xbox One are getting an edition as well. So previous gen is covered in on that, as well as PC. It's going to be coming out at $59.99 for the base version, available on 8th of March, with DLC coming post-launch, which is the most annoying thing, with different outfits and characters, which I remember buying SmackDown vs. Raw, and everyone was just in it. The whole roster was there for you to unlock through campaign mode and certain things, but
I hope it's a return to form because they've been hit and miss recently, haven't they?
Yeah, it's decided, I think, changing the engine and the developer and stuff, and then they took a year out, and then we got that bobblehead edition, was WWE Battlegrounds, which was so bad.
Side thing, though.
That was one of the few games I refunded in the last ever.
Yeah, so. I'm thinking like the main Series 2K franchise, like it's it's due for a win. It's due for like a full return to form and to really something that wrestling fans can go happy with that.
Happy with it. Again, it should be a service, not like we've said it before about FIFA and the likes. It's like any sports franchise, just give us the platform now and just let us buy the season pass every year. Like I would quite happily just have EA Sports FC be the platform, and every year
I'd want them to massively improve things like career mode and stuff first.
I mean, but they could if it was just if it was one platform, they could iteratively update it. Whereas because they're stuck in this yearly cycle of getting a new one out, they only get a certain time frame to update the certain features, like with the wrestling game. Whereas it should just be new players come in, new rosters. They are just season pass content, and then they could have a WrestleMania event, they could have a Royal Rumble event, they could have a SummerSlam event. It would just like perpetually tick over in line with the real world events, just like the football season would, just like cricket and golf and everything would. But we digress. But yeah, you're right. Hopefully a return to form for WWE 2K franchise. Moving on to the next one, we have Horizon Forbidden West Complete Edition gets a PC release. We've knew about this for some time, but it's been confirmed as coming for 21st of March 2024. This includes the base game and the Burning Shores expansion, which I still need to get back to. That's one that this week I was like, oh, do I just install Horizon and go back and finish Burning Shores? And then you got me with Hellblade, because I think in my mind's eye, I kind of want to play something like brand new. It's that thing where because it's DLC, it's not tainted, but you know what I mean. It doesn't. You don't have the same pull to go back to DLC as you do.
I think
something
sometimes
new.
With DLC for a fairly big game like Horizon, since it's been so long since you've played, getting back into the game, remembering what's going on in the world, and getting comfortable with mechanics before you play the DLC. That's just something that's one of the reasons I very rarely play DLC, because I just don't want to go back at that point. Where with Final Fantasy 16, the DLC launched as I was playing through the game. So I was like, oh, I'm happy to play it.
You did play the game later, though, as well.
Yeah, I played the game later. I'm happy to play it because it's out now. So it didn't feel like I was having to go back and they're uncomfortable. How do you play this bloody thing again?
Yeah. I will say, though, watching the trailer, it reminds me of how impressive the facial features are on just NPCs in Horizon. Like, if you think since Horizon launch, we've had the likes of Starfield have came out. We've watched them clips last week of Avowed, and none of them come close to just... You're talking like random characters that you don't even know, you just bump into in the wilderness in Horizon, you talk to them. Their gestures, their facial animation, the detail, the micro expressions, absolute gorilla nailed. Like, whatever motion capture or engine they're using for... Obviously, we know it's what engine it is, but it just looks so good. Like, they've nailed it. I can't think of a game that does better in NPC interactions with dialogue options as well. Obviously,
all right. Yeah, I was going to say Last of Us.
Yeah, Naughty Dog. Yeah, I mean, like that isn't like narratively. Like,
but you're in the same
multiple thing. Yeah,
you're in the same family of studios there. So
yeah, but it just looks great. I will get to Burning Shores eventually. Oh, Ubisoft, no, they need to give themselves a good shake when it comes to that one. But yeah, Burning Shores coming out for PC. It's coming with like I said, all the DLC include as well, ultra wide monitor support, all like the juiciness that comes with a PC port. So I'm sure it'll pick up and sell numbers there. Fun stuff. Speaking of PC inspired games, Richie, you're a big fan of Five Nights at Freddy's from that one Let's Play we did that one time. But we did mention Horror with Until Dawn, come back into it. Five Nights at Freddy's Into the Pit was leaked online, and the series creator just came out and said, look, you know what, it's out now, everyone can chat about it, don't need to be secret or coy with this thing. This is from Mega Cat Studios, who work on a lot of the Five Nights at Freddy's titles, although this one seems to be a little bit different. From the trailer, for me, it looks like it's a 16-bit video game of some sort.
Side-scroller.
Yeah, the description: fall into the pit and immerse yourself in a new chapter of the Five Nights at Freddy's universe. Oswald wishes his town and his life weren't so boring. All that changes when he dives into the ball pit at a rundown pizzeria and finds himself in the past. However, Oswald's deepest desires will have an unexpected cost. Survive 5 nights of terror in the chilling adventure game. Travel through time to solve puzzles, gather clues, and outrun the threat chasing you through both universes. Move swiftly and stay hidden as you must survive. But this time, it's not just your own life that's on the line. Oswald's father and the 5 children from the past could all meet their end if you don't save them. So it's, some kind of like 16-bit 2D scroller horror game, maybe. I feel like Five Nights at Freddy's has just kind of grew arms and legs unto itself, and it's not just about sitting in a chair and switching CCTV cameras on now.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like, credit to the devs for like kind of building an IP and finding new, interesting, creative ways to use it. Because even which one would we play? That one was not a traditional Five Nights at Freddy's as you'd think of it. That was more of like an open world, almost like not survival game. Like, it was basically like a horror game, stealth horror in some ways. Like,
which one did we play?
I can't remember. Lights Out, was it?
Security Breach,
yeah. But yeah, I'm not particularly interested in the franchise myself, even though I did enjoy what we played as Security Breach. But it's like I didn't enjoy it enough to want to go back and continue. It's just like, credit them for being like finding creative ways to use it.
Over 1,500 views on our Security Breach video.
Oh, nice. Not bad for us.
I'll take it. Not bad for us at all. So yeah, more Five Nights at Freddy's action coming to the world. Go check that one out. Pivoting away from some game news, Richie, you mentioned you were about to start Plague Tale Requiem. I can't wait to hear your thoughts on it. And it's actually interesting starting Hellblade. It's got that similar colour palette to it. Where it's muted. Like, it's got like a little bit of like brown griminess to the world. And it's interesting. It's basically if God of War met Plague Tale is the vibe I kind of got to it in terms of the way, even just like the sound effects in Hellblade are very similar. But it did make me reminisce and think when I played Requiem, one of the best things for setting atmosphere, you'll know what I'm talking about, is that kind of like that quick violin note it plays when bad stuff's about to happen in Plague Tale. It's like whenever the rats appear, there's like a really bad screech on a violin. And it's just like, it's so distinctive. It was like, it reminded me of it a little bit. The strings. But aside from Plague Tale, can't wait for you to check it out because I think you're going to thoroughly enjoy it. The sequel is...
I did the first one, so...
The sequel is just the first one ramped up completely, for both graphically, story-wise, character development, everything you need. Focus Entertainment, they've had actually a good run of games of late, and recently, PlayStation Plus, they brought over Evil West and Plague Tale Requiem to PS Plus catalogue for January. The French publisher randomly just admitted, they announced, not admitted, they're going to be going through a rebranding in April and changing their name to PulluP Entertainment. That's PULLU capital P at the end, creating a palindrome with its name, PulluP.
They need to do the second P
face the other way
in reverse.
Yes, yeah. I completely agree. The logo, they haven't. This is the weird thing. They made the announcement. They've not released a logo yet, so. It is what it is. They announced as part of the earnings report, which was actually down 43% based on last year, probably because they haven't had as many games out. Plague Tale and obviously Evil West doing it better compared to what they've released so far. It's not one that I really want to lament on, but it just seems like I think Focus Entertainment has got like it's got a good, but it's got a solid brand now. Like after playing Plague Tale, and there's a couple of other titles I've played recently, when that like triangle arrow logo pops at the beginning and says Focus Entertainment, I am starting to associate that with like a level of quality, and now they want to just throw that all away and call themselves PulluP, which sounds like, I'm going to say it, sounds like a nappy brand.
Yeah, I like the fact that they've got palindrome. You don't get many palindromes, so I like the fact that, but I personally think Focus Entertainment is better.
I do as well. I mean, I was going to say, like, well, why wouldn't you keep with Focus? It's like, is it because it's not really necessary to do with gaming? Like, Focus Entertainment, you can't help. But then I was like, but PulluP again.
Some brand managers done, like, some studies and, like, probably found that Focus Entertainment wasn't as well known as they would like. And they thought, well, if we do a name change, like, and then they've got, like, I don't know, like...
I mean, we're one
bunch of people in the room. Yeah, it's like, we're brilliant at rebranding. We're good at it.
We are. But
we can rebrand in an entire evening and no one notices till next morning. We've done it like several times.
PulluP.
We will not do it this year.
We will not. But either way, we know they've got a couple of development teams in-house as well as their publishing arms as well. So Deck 13, they've also got working on stuff. But either way, just, it's an odd one.
It's a name, doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it does. What have they got actually coming out? Space Marine? I think is one of the ones they've got in the pipeline for later this year, September. Inevitably, a third entry in the Plague Tale series. Evil West actually has been one that's been on my radar to check out, but Anyway, it's coming. It's happening. PulluP nappies available soon. Moving on to talking about PulluP nappies. Skull and Bones is still a thing. It's happening soon. They released a trailer for an announcement for Endgame and Year One. Off the back of the imminent arrival, they released a season pass, seasons 1, 2, 3, 4, various characters, various protagonists you will face off with for loot and plunder. They've announced that the beta access, there's an open beta going to kick off leading up to launch, which your save will transfer over, Richie. So our beta save will transfer over to the main game, which is a good position to start into. And they've committed to 1 year of content. Raging Tides, Chorus of Havoc, Into the Dragon's Wake, and Shadows of the Deep, which shows different antagonists, both who you've seen in the main campaign, across including Philip Lepeste, the Hubak twins, Li Tian Ning, and a bunch of others will fight for global leaderboards and reward you with new items and cosmetics based on your performance. Open beta will be available through the 8th of February to 11th of February, and of course the game launches on the 16th of February. So basically the week ahead of launch, they're going to be trying to get people in the door early with an open beta. Final thought, almost time to stop talking about Skull and Bones launch.
Yeah,
I mean, great that they're committing to it, to supporting it, because that's what I think the game needs.
They're going to be disappointed in the numbers, but I think there might be a hardcore community form. Because based on what we played, I think there is better exponents of the survival game genre, which is not a good point when you're one of the biggest AAA developers in the world launching one. You should probably be targeting the best of the genre. And it's definitely better for cheaper as well. But it does have its own unique thing with being the whole piratey thing going on. So I think it will build a small, passionate community, but it's not going to be anywhere near, I think, Assassin's Creed level. I just can't see it.
No. From what we played, I didn't have, as a big Ubisoft fan and a Black Flag fan, and a fan of Pirates, actually, it did not do anything for me that made me think I want to come back and play this game.
It could. I think it's one of them games, though. We only played for like an hour. It could build, as it builds and you get deeper into mechanics, I can see it being a bit more deep. But
even after an hour of Palworld, I wanted to play more Palworld.
Yeah. And well, now it's going up against Palworld as well. So it's, I don't know. I think they're in for some rough seas. Yeah.
Rough seas for Skull and Bones. But at least once it's out, it will be in known quantity and we can stop talking about it. Indeed. One thing I would like to talk about, though, as we round out today's show, is RoboCop, Rogue City. This is another game that's been on my radar. It keeps getting pushed with 30% sales. Nacon over there, Teon, publishing Nacon, have announced a major update for Rogue City, adding New Game Plus and more. It also includes a fully invincible robotic law enforcement experience as part of it, which is basically sounds like invincibility mode, and a bunch of other tiny little nods to the movies and the history of RoboCop. Remember, this is a game that came out before Christmas. It's to do with the movie. It basically replicates Detroit. It's a shooter. Didn't take itself too seriously, and then it got loads of plaudits. And influencers alike and journalists were saying, like, you know what, this game's damn good. So this studio now have made a great Terminator game, now a great RoboCop game. It seems to be that they just take whatever licenses from the 80s they can get hold of and make pretty damn good products. So this is one that if it drops on Game Pass, I'll be ecstatic, because it's like, yes, I'll PlayStation Plus, because it's one of them, like, it's a new game, but it's not. It's kind of had its moment in the sun, and now it's like, right, where can you get the most value from it? And I think I'll jump straight into it, but at the moment, I might buy it. RoboCop, you're not the biggest RoboCop fan, Richie, but you did grow up in that era.
Yeah, but nothing against it. Just don't have anything particularly in for it either. I definitely have seen RoboCop films, but I can't really remember them in any vivid detail, so it's...
Yeah, I'm probably the same as well. I think I've seen them all, but my memory's hazy on what exactly...
PS5 version's £35 on Amazon. I think you should just go for it. You're between games. Well, you will be soon once you finish Hellblade, which will probably be like in about 5 hours or something.
Probably today. Maybe if we get away from the show and get to it. But we'll round out today's show by answering two questions from our Discord server. Remember, if you want to write into the show, we do have a separate thread in our Discord server for said questions. Reading from Hjorvar, I'll throw this one over to you, Richie. In the Insomniac leak we talked about a few weeks ago, Sony talks about needing more money from the games. One thing they talk about is instead of selling Spider-Man 3 for $70, they'll split the game up into 2 small parts, Spider-Man 3 and 4, and sell each part for $50. So $100 in total, more profit, one game split into 2. So now we see Hellblade 2 is going to be a shorter game, roughly about 8 hours, with no discs, so going all digital, which we've also said, and selling for $50. His question is, do you think this is the future where we'll see more of a variation, or is it something you're for and against? Personally, Hjorvar is all for it. He's happy with single-player games to come out faster, at a faster cadence, but shorter in terms of scope, so you can finish them.
My thing is, I wouldn't say I'm for or against it necessarily, because my whole thing is kind of, I like the diversity in the gaming industry. Some games like Hellblade works really well as such a short, tight experience. I don't think that game would suit being a 50, 60, 70-hour massive experience. So that works in that front. And again, with something like maybe the length of time you play Hellblade for, it's probably not worth $50 for everyone. Depends how you really value your money versus time. Because if you're kind of going like a loose or £1 per like hour played kind of cadence, Hellblade's an expensive game. Because it's Game Pass, it's like a complete gets a pass. So it really, for me, I like games when it's not the marketing team dictating what the game is. It's the creatives dictating what the game is, and the marketing team are there to sell what's being made, not tell them what to make.
It's always back to that subjective decision as well, isn't it? Like everyone, like why isn't Hellblade worth $70? Like,
yeah, it's a piece
you go
of
to
art.
the cinema and you pay the
it's
same ticket price for whatever movie you go see, right?
Hellblade, I think one of the reasons I've resonated with it so strongly is it does feel like a piece of art. It doesn't feel like something that's been manufactured. It feels like it's been something lovingly created. They've had a vision, they've executed on it. Mm-hmm. For Spider-Man, Miles Morales is a shorter experience in that kind of $50 price point when it came out. And that worked really well. So for Spider-Man, I can see it working. But not every game can do that. Some games I do think, like Final Fantasy 16, it is a 100-hour plus experience, and it kind of needs to be for what that game is trying to do. So I don't think I'd want something like Final Fantasy 16 split into 2 parts, despite Final Fantasy 7 being. It's split into 3 parts, but it really, but 7 is split into like 3 100-hour experiences.
Yeah, I think it's so.
I don't know. I just don't think I have any preference either way, as long as it feels like it's the right decision for the game and what they want to do.
Yeah, I think my worry would be about a story like splitting the main Spider-Man games into 2 would be the cliffhanger that they would inevitably have to leave the third one on to then.
But if they wrote the story with that is how they've written the story from the ground up. Like, here's the story we want to tell. We don't need to make this. Like, even like Spider-Man 2 Spider-Man 2 isn't as big as Spider-Man 1. It's a smaller experience. It's like Spider-Man 1, I think you're looking maybe 70 hours. I think Spider-Man 2 is about 40 when you add in all the side content and stuff.
I'd have said they're about the same. But again, it all depends on how you play through it and what you do.
Yeah, but it's just... But I don't know, for me, it's just I do whatever suits the game.
The smaller styles, so like the Miles Morales, I do enjoy. I'm looking forward to a Venom one. I thoroughly enjoyed Lost Legacy, the smaller Uncharted experience, and I appreciate not having to wait 4 to 5 years for that experience. But again, with like spiraling development costs and time, it's always going to be subjective. But I think Richie's right. I think a mix of L in the industry is needed. But yeah, I'm as I get older and have less time to play, I'm all for shorter experiences.
I think as well, like the cost of games is going up, and it can suck because this is our hobby. It means our hobby's getting more expensive. But I always try to remember the human element of it. This is people working, slaving over making this thing that I'm getting a lot of joy out. If my bills are going up, so are theirs. So they deserve to be properly remunerated, and when that costs a lot of money to do. So it comes down to the question is like, are Sony, for example, in this case, doing this purely out of greed because like shareholders want more and more and more profit, or is this so they can maintain a high quality and high standards without just burning at everything to the ground, and just like it's that kind of sustainability of your business model. So there's a lot in it, to be honest. Yeah. And there's going to have to be adaptation, to be honest.
It's an
games are bigger now than they used to be. It's like you mentioned Lost Legacy actually as being a shorter game. It's probably longer than Uncharted 1 and 2.
Yeah, probably.
And that's considered a shorter game now.
Yeah. Well, we've seen playing through Halo, haven't we? Like Halo 1, we just powered through, and then we nearly finished 2, and we've only done 2
games
streams.
They're just bigger now than they used to be.
Well, just like inflation. Thank you for the question, Hjorvar. Writing it in again. If you want to write in, head over to our Discord, just like Sarge did as well. Sarge's question this week says, mention of an Xbox and Developer Direct last week had me wondering if a Game Pass deal / console wasn't available on the table at all, would you have got into the ecosystem at the time you did, or would you have bought one anyway for the sake of the channel's growth? So when you and me bought our Series S consoles, there's kind of a lot of things going on channel-wise. I don't know from your point of view, Richie, but from mine, at that time, I think we got our Stadia refunds, or we knew they were coming. We spoke about different ecosystems, and I do think playing Stadia opened our minds up to maybe what was beyond the PlayStation and Switch ecosystems that we were so fully engrossed in before. I personally think I was on the verge of getting one anyway, and I think with the All Access pass that we've both got, and I think Rob got as well, where it was just $21.99 a month for 2 years of Game Pass and the console as well, it seemed like an absolute no-brainer. So I'd like to think, regardless of having the channel, and I'd like to think regardless of if the channel continued or not, I'd probably still have an Xbox for Game Pass, just for the value it brings. And you just happen to get a console with that All Access bundle. So I think I would have got it regardless. How about yourself?
Probably yes, eventually. It's hard to know because it was actually the All Access deal that really went, there's no reason to delay on this.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is an interest-free thing, so I am just only paying for the value as if you bought the console and Game Pass for that period of time. So there's no interest or anything on that. So it's not like costing me more money. It's just spreading that cost. So I'd have to be honest, I'd have to look at my bank statements back then. How much cash did I have free available? If Game Pass didn't exist, I don't think I would get into the Xbox ecosystem, though.
Same as well on that front.
I think that's fair to say, because I've been on record now saying loads of times where I think Game Pass is the best deal in gaming, but Sony's first parties currently tick all the boxes for games I want to play right now. So if it wasn't for Game Pass, I wouldn't have got an Xbox. It wouldn't really be a consideration.
Yeah.
But the quality of games, while not being absolute top tier, in my opinion, they are still good. And then it gets me into that new ecosystem. It just kind of it was just all the stars kind of aligned at the right time when we were thinking about the channel. And I was thinking about, because we're starting to cover Xbox more. I was like, well, it was a no-brainer.
Yeah.
With All Access.
And we talk about system sellers as well, but obviously Starfield coming out, it's hard to tell already being in the ecosystem. But for me, if I hadn't got one then, I think Indiana Jones might have been one that pushed me to think like, I should probably get an Xbox to play this title. In hindsight, I wish I'd actually gone for an X instead of an S, just because I think I got it in terms of like, I knew there wasn't that much to play at the time when we signed up for it. But for the extra couple of quid, I think I should have just got an X now.
I was trying to keep my costs down a bit, but I think like Plague Tale, one of the reasons I didn't play Plague Tale Requiem is after playing Innocence, it did have a step down in frame rate, and while it looked pretty on the S, I found it did feel a bit jerky and stuff when you go from that straight from 60 to 30 in one jump, while effectively almost feel like you're playing the same game. It felt a bit uncomfortable, which is why I decided to shelve it rather than like tarnishing my experience with the game to go back. And now I've got on PlayStation 5, that's where I'm going to play, because I think I'll get a better experience out of it. So maybe it would have been worth the extra money for the X. But, yeah.
Who knows? But thank you very much, Sarge, for your question, and thank you for the members for writing in and your continued support. Final story of the week, Richie, because it keeps happening, is there's an Xbox toaster. For $29.99 here in the UK, you can buy an Xbox toaster, which comes with level adjusting features, crumb tray, extra long slot, ejection for your toast, and shut off with LED control panels, and it even brandishes your toast with an Xbox logo for the crack. Richie,
yeah,
we keep talking about this. What amongst layoffs of jobs and millions of money made and acquisitions worth $68 billion, why do Xbox keep making kitchen appliances and clothing
for your controllers?
I mean, I think the fridge looks better than the toaster, in all honesty.
I don't think the toaster looks that terrible, to be honest.
I mean, it just looks like a white rectangle like the Series S, but...
Yeah, I think you could have it in your kitchen without people realising it's an Xbox toaster until you made them a slice of toast. And like, you really have to be, really have to like Xbox. Like, I'm a big gamer, but I don't want this. I don't want to go to that depth where everything I have, everything in my life is video game related.
No, you know what?
I do have some PlayStation coasters, so I will, and you bought me them, so.
You know what I have a problem with, though?
What? It's not even.
No. The toaster, it says it's got an anti-slip function. It's got an anti-jam function. I like jam on my toast. What's this toaster got against jam?
It's butter only or marmalade.
It's a butter only toaster. Okay, Paddington. But yeah, Xbox, keep going. And just like we will. But that does bring us to an end for this week's show. We round out every week, of course, by looking at this day in video game history. And we're recording on January the 27th. January's finally nearly finished, Richie. Payday is upon us.
Not till Wednesday for me.
Same, but it's so close now. It has to be gone. January's 7th week is almost up. Looking back at this day in video game history, anything stand out for you on this list, or is January still a quiet month in the annals of history?
It's looking quite quiet. Dead Space is apparently last year.
Yeah, we got it early in the year for the remake, but nothing in history. I'm looking back. There's no names that stand out for me. Resident Evil Survivor in Japan 24 years ago, but never heard of it.
I'm skipping ahead to the 28th, and there's Final Fantasy Tactics. I've never played it, but I've heard of it.
25 years ago for Digimon World on PlayStation 1. Copyright from copying off Pokemon, remember?
There you go, Chris. He's two good ones. Pokemon Legend for the 28th of January. Pokemon Legends Arceus 2 years ago. And the Uncharted Legacy of Thieves collection on PS5.
They're not old ones, though, are they? They're just kind of like...
Yeah, they're not old ones, but...
Looking back at history 2-3 years doesn't seem as crazy, but evidently...
January 29th, we've got Duke Nukem 3D. I think January is a bit of a quieter month anyway.
It is. But not for this very show, not for this podcast. Let us know in the comments below what you're playing this week. Let us know if you've checked out Palworld and if you've enjoyed it. But that has been it for episode 24 of the GamerGuild Podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, ring that bell so you're kept in the loop with all of our other great content and shows like this very show, like our Let's Plays, our live streams, our watch-alongs. Don't forget to join us this Thursday as we jump back into the world of Halo. After our experiences in Palworld, we'll go back and play Halo 2 here on the stream. Jump in, join us. We do appreciate it. Check out the Discord. Check out the merchandise store. Follow us on all socials at GamerGuildTV. But that's been it. My name's been Chris.
I've been Richie.
Remember, folks, play whatever makes you the happiest, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.
Stop it with the damn doll.